Today's episode is about insurance companies repudiating claims due to lack of occupation certificates. What is an occupation certificate? Why are these claims being repudiated? And which are the structures that cause the major headaches? Welcome to episode 2 of Property Compliance Matters. To understand why insurance claims are being repudiated, you first have to understand just high level, what is an occupation certificate. So high level, approved building plan is a recipe that has been approved by council within the guidelines of the municipal bylaws of that specific municipality, town planning scheme of that specific town, and then the national building regulations. So together with an architectural professional and an engineer and a council facilitator, you will go through a process of building plan approval, where council then says, okay, you have met all the requirements that we have. You now have an approved recipe on what it is that you can erect on your property. Okay. After the contractor then comes, or the construction company or whoever is going to build all these structures, after the structures are erected, and during the process of building the structures, then we've got a whole different situation of existing structures that need building plans, which I'll also dive into at a later, in a later episode, as-built structures. But whether it now be new structures or as-built structures, the inspector needs to get to the property and confirm that the structures were built according to the recipe, the approved building plan that council approved. After they have confirmed that, they will ask for certificates of compliance from the plumber, from the glazier, gas installation specialist, the engineer, the architect, which basically is confirmation from that specific industry that the installation or the structure has been built or installed according to standard. So they are putting their professional number that they have, and they're on a piece of paper, a certificate, and they are saying, me as a professional plumber, I agree and I confirm that the installation is done according to standard, and here is a certificate of compliance to confirm that. All of those documentation then needs to be taken to the building inspector, and the building inspector then issues the occupation certificate. So the occupation certificate is then basically the go-ahead to occupy the space, which means that if there's not an occupation certificate issued, there is no go-ahead provided from council to say that you can occupy that space, which basically means that the structure remains illegal. That's what it means. This is what insurance companies has grabbed onto. Not all, but more and more of them are starting to do it. Some with reason. Typical structures like boundary walls and roofs. You have to ensure that they are erected according to the calculations of the engineer, so that the structures aren't too heavy, the span is not too. They've got very complicated calculations to ensure that the weight can be carried. And that the walls don't fall over, the necessary supporting beams is in place, etc. The thickness of the cement, it's very complicated. So they do complicated calculations to ensure that basically that everything doesn't fall in, that there's structural integrity to the structures that are being erected. And typically what happens is roofs fall in with rain, a lot of rain, roofs fall in, and boundary walls fall in. And the first place where many of the insurance companies go is to say, okay, but give us an occupation certificate that once upon a time the process was completed and there was confirmation that it was actually built correctly. A lot of the times it was not built correctly. The correct material was not used, the correct quality of the material, the thickness of items wasn't used. If a wall is higher than 1.8 meters, it needs extra support, otherwise it's going to fall over. And a lot of times that is not in place, which brings the question, why should the insurance company pay for a substandard structure that was never erected according to the regulations, which is a fair point. The other side of that is everything has been erected correctly and done correctly, but the process of occupation certificate was never completed because it's typically something that needs to be driven by the owner, which the owner doesn't even know or realize. And a claim comes and now there's no occupation certificate. So we had actually a real estate agent who was speaking with me on the phone, and while they were speaking with me on the phone, their kitchen started to burn, and the claim was repudiated because the insurance company just said that it was an electrical error and there was no COC in place for the electricity and there was no occupation certificate in place, so they didn't pay that out. And there was a estate, HOA director from a estate, the boundary walls for over hundreds of thousands of rands of claims that was repudiated because there was no occupation certificate that supported that specific structures. And this week, we've got a business structure owner, a business owner, and he's got a couple of 100,000 rands of claims that he would like to put into the insurance company, who's now asking for an occupation certificate, and we are still trying to see if there is an occupation certificate available from council. So more often than not, occupation certificates are not available. So make sure you've got your building plan, approved building plan, and make sure you've got an occupation certificate that speaks to the plan number of that specific approved building plan. Then you're good to go. For more information, reach out, info@shinesa.co.za, and I'll put all the rest of the contact details in the description field as well.